and welcome to the Expert's Voice. This is a platform where I get to speak to some amazing authors, entrepreneurs, and speakers to talk about what they're passionate about and why they are the authority in their chosen field. So my name is Brenda Dempsey. I'm the CEO of Book Brilliance Publishing, and today's guest in the hot seat is none other than Colin Tansley.
Hi, Brenda. Good to be on. Thank you.
Thanks very much for agreeing to come on and share your wisdom and your expertise all around security. And I'm sure you can give us a wee bit more background before we get into some more questions. So, Colin, let's start off. Tell us who you are, and what drives you to do what you do today.
Well, my company is called Intellect. I joined the police, West Yorkshire, in 1981. So that was a long, long time ago now. I was attracted to the police after being in the armed forces for 5 years. And I suppose that was the beginning of a journey into security and risk investigations and that sort of thing. Looking after people, looking after businesses, and the world is very different now. I mean, when I joined, investigating was pretty much knocking on people's doors or rattling door handles, and making sure everything was okay. But we're in a very different world now. So a lot of the work I do now is around anything in the digital space. So cybersecurity, due diligence investigation. So rather than me interviewing people or looking for things, looking for clues out there in the analog world, I'm doing it on a computer. So I spend my time helping companies and people understand threats, risk, their security, and it's been a learning experience as well, because I've had to sort of adapt to quite a different environment. I've been doing it for about just over 10 years now, so I'm comfortable with it. But it was actually a challenging experience in actually adapting to that and getting used to it and being different. But it's about, I think I've just got a passion for security. And helping people stay safe, really. I think
that's right, keep people safe. And of course, safety is one of our human basic needs. If we don't feel safe, we can't do much else. So, and I think in this day and age, so let's just go back a bit and investigate what elements of your experience has absolutely built that expertise to make you the go-to person. So let's go back and look at, you entered the army as a young man. And what would you say were the three main learning about being in the army that you are taking forward into what you're doing today?
I think first and foremost discipline, because when I joined at 16, I was probably a bit wayward in many ways, and I like a lot of my sort of peers at the time. It's like, it's a long time ago since I was 16, but at that age you think you know everything. Well, I came down to earth with the bomb very, very quickly. And I sort of go back to when I returned from my first period of leave and saw my mum. She said, "Oh, you've grown into a man very quickly." And that was in a matter of about sort of 16 weeks that they turn you around. And that experience was like no other. And it's something that's been a foundation for me throughout my career. But a belief, and you can do things. Albeit I thought I knew everything, there was also that nervousness about doing things. I didn't think I had the ability to do it. So things like climbing. I would wanted to do it, didn't do it before. Running, sports, canoeing. We did all sorts of stuff. We had exposure to all sorts of sports, assault courses, firing weapons. And it's all very different experiences, but they give you that belief in yourself. And I think from that, tenacity and determination, because I think you've got to have those skills to get on anyway, but also in any business.
Absolutely. Before we leave the army, is there one particular story that stands out for you in the army, whether it's humorous, whether it's about a failure, or something that you think, do you know what, that experience, that situation absolutely started a form of transformation within you?
There were a few, I suppose. I mean, I because of my sort of wayward nature, there was a little group of us who used to get into little bits of trouble, and we were a little bit over the top one evening and got sent down to see the troop sergeant because we were being a bit cheeky to our room corporal. But between the three of us, we decided we weren't going to do that, and we went down to the stairs to where the troop sergeant's office was. We waited around in the stairwell for a little while and then went back up and said we'd seen him. And the next morning I was first out on parade and the sergeant banged on the window and beckoned me in, and my mates weren't there. And I felt very, very vulnerable at that time, I think, because I wasn't surrounded by my friends. And I got the biggest, you'll have to excuse my language, biggest bollocking ever, and brought down to earth with a bump. And then my two colleagues joined me and we were disciplined. We ended up doing 7 days restriction of privileges. And I think we'd crossed the line, and I think it was a smack in the face, and a well-deserved one really, because we were just acting like idiots. But that really did bring me back down to earth with a bump, and I decided to get my head down and work, and ended up getting a small promotion, and left there and joined the regular army after some months after that.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is integrity. So integrity, I know, is one of your values. So when you didn't do the right thing, that the devilment that you are when you're 16 and 17. So was that a wake-up call to make you more aware of always making better choices?
I think so. And I'm not saying my journey has been perfect, because there have been occasions when I think we all stray off the path at times.
Oh yeah, of course.
But no, without a doubt, and that has stuck in my mind all these years. And that was back in 1975. So it's never left me. And I think we all have these sort of awakenings from time to time, don't we?
But, absolutely. I love that word. So a young lad in the army, and then you leave the army.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide what's next?
I was on a troop ship coming back from Norway, I think, and I'd sort of become quite disillusioned with the army because I expected it to be all sort of keeping busy all the time. But we were in a position where if you weren't on exercise or traveling to places, you were painting vehicles or just doing menial tasks. So I was getting a little bit, there was this thirst to do things. And I saw some, bear in mind I was 20, and I saw a TV program on a boat coming back from Norway, and it was about the police and controlling riots. And I thought, I don't mind doing that. So I came back and made an application to join West Yorkshire Police. And there was a bit of a journey I went through there. So I joined when I was, just before my 21st birthday, I think. So I joined as a very young lad. But that was, and again, it was about adventure and excitement, I think, doing something different. But it was a natural sort of progression from being in a uniform service, I think.
Yeah, so you can see that, so the army, police, it's all about that discipline. It's all about, you should say, the uniform.
Yeah.
And it's all about it's service, isn't it? So even although you might not have been conscious of it, it's around serving your community, serving others to make the place safer and a better world.
Yeah, definitely.
So you join the police force. So how did all those other traits that you talked about, your determination, your tenacity, how did they grow and develop when you moved into the police force?
I think your confidence has to grow because you're dealing with people, and there's an expectation you are going to know everything. So if I think a bit about this now, you go out on your first night shift in a uniform, but Joe Public doesn't know that you've only got a couple of days in the job. So there's an expectation you're going to know what you're doing. Well, a lot of it was bluffing, I think. But I had some very, very good teachers. I mean, you're surrounded by mentors, people that have been there and done it. And I had some phenomenal teachers who did me great service. And but I think, I wasn't the greatest student, and there was a lot to learn. I wasn't the greatest student at school. I didn't like being in a classroom, and I failed miserably on a couple of exams, and I was given a very stern warning: if you don't put your ideas up, you're gone. And again, that was like the proverbial rocket up the backside, really. So, and at the time, I was married, had a baby on the way, and it was sort yourself out. It's so, and then from then on, once I got my sort of method in play about study and revision, then I just got better at it, and it was just, I suppose, self-discipline, really.
So I suppose the journey in the police, because you were in there for a good number of years, where did you start in the police, in what area, and what made you move from one department to another department? What were you chasing?
I think, well, I started in a place called Castleford in West Yorkshire, which was a mining town. And that's where I served in that area for 4 to 5 years. And then I joined the public order unit, which is what I wanted to do from the outset. So it was all, I think it was, I was very young. I wanted to grow into the job and do different things. And policing gives you that. You don't have to be, unless you really want to, you don't have to stay in one area or one, some people do, they stay 30 years in uniform, but I wanted to experience as much as possible. So I wanted to go into the task force, which is a public order team, and they did plainclothes work and lots of exciting stuff. And again, it was like feeding my adrenaline rush, really. But I also wanted to be a detective. So I knew that would take time, but I wanted to be confident enough that I was a good investigator before I even went on that journey. So and so I went from public order, I went into CID eventually. That was a long journey, and then I started to sort of move towards promotion. And then that's an entirely different sort of path that you follow, and involves lots of hard work.
Yeah, so that's then moving into leadership. But
yeah,
what again? So I like 3.
Yeah.
What were the 3 traits and aspects that you developed most as a detective that made you successful?
Asking questions. Question the answers is always, there's 3 things that detectives will always sort of refer to: assume nothing, believe nobody, check everything. There's the 3, and that has stayed with me throughout my career, in actual fact. And when I train people in due diligence investigations, I always talk about ABC.
Love it.
So yeah, and that has played through life as well. It's a good. I'm not saying if you're not very careful, if you believe nobody. I'm not saying you never believe anybody, but your initial approach should be don't believe everything. So, and that forces you to ask questions.
And I think you said a word there that I think is missing, but in security it's important, and that's diligence. If I think of diligence, if I think of Napoleon Hill and Carnegie, and all of those, and Ford, all of those men, the great men who have left us amazing legacies, they talk about due diligence in your business, and due diligence in life, so I don't know where you think in that time where you've had to learn due diligence, is that something that seems to be a bit missing, a missing piece in today's
I think due diligence, I suppose, in the very most basic sense, is about making good choices. But we're not always going to make good choices. Sometimes other things influence us. But yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. But that also comes with experience. You can't be expected as a 16-year-old to make good choices all the time, because life is a big classroom, isn't it? So
massive.
Yeah.
But you see, the thing, so what's coming into my mind, and please correct me if I'm wrong in my thinking, but when I think about diligence, it's doing like you were saying in the army, that it's doing mundane things over and over again, because it's about creating those habits that you check things out over and over. You don't just leave it to chance, or you hear it once, or that's fine. Because I know myself, I don't always do due diligence, and guess what happens when you don't do it? You know, it
Yeah,
comes back and bites you.
yeah, you get your fingers burnt. And certainly, I know we're leaping forward a little bit, but some of the businesses that come to me after the event could have saved themselves so much, time, the damage of actually doing those or sense checking the business relationship they're going to go on, or clicking on that link in an email, or sending something and paid an invoice when they should have done the due diligence. And that would, or even to the point of training staff where it would have stopped all that.
Yeah. So detective, but then you've had such a varied career in the police. So do you want to talk about how you got into oh my goodness, it's gone out my head, child protection?
Yeah.
And how does that help you with the work you do today?
Oh, massively. That was, I think, partly by design, partly by accident. By that time, my family were quite young, and I felt immensely protective of them anyway. And there was an incident in Leeds where a young girl was abducted and murdered. And I think anybody in my team, because I was on task force time, everybody in my team who were kids were on hyper sort of alert, and being very protective of their kids. So that was always in the back of my mind that, kids can get taken off the streets and you never see them again. But in actual fact, whilst that was a very, very serious incident, and those sorts of things happen, what I came to learn was that children are more at risk at home than they are on the street.
Yeah.
From abuse and such like. So yeah. I was asked, I'd done some my CID aid, which was a 6 months assessment, if you like, and you're getting used to being in CID and they're getting used to you. And it was brought about that as part of that, you have to do a month in child protection teams. And I thought, why have I got to do that? Anyway, I really enjoyed it. It was protecting kids. It was working in partnership with other agencies, so it wasn't just the police. So in terms of lessons learned, it taught me that the police don't know everything, that sometimes you've got to go to other agencies for help, and you might have to lead them, you might have to hold their hand, you might not, and they may have to do the opposite, and they may lead you. But it actually opened my eyes to problem solving, I think, in terms of particularly crime problems. So I got exposure to lots of stuff for a very short period of time, 4 weeks, and then I was asked to go back to backfill for somebody, and that's when I really I thought I could do this. But then a combination of things, I went on a course, but then I ended up getting promoted, and I went back in the end as a detective sergeant. So I didn't end up going there as a detective constable for very long. I ended up going back as a supervisor.
Yeah. Excellent. And throughout your life, and we talked about moving, as you move up and you get more responsibility, you're then getting into leadership. And so it's no surprising that you're now out the police and you're leading within your field in, as you're saying, like cyber security and using that. So what skills would you say have been the most invaluable to you in setting up and maintaining your business?
Relationship building, I think, with people, and building trust, demonstrating competency, because as anybody could set up a website and say they're the best at sliced bread. But to do that trust, you've got to be able to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, that you're able to protect them, and that, I think, is I think we talk about, I've got a passion for security, but trust and integrity as well, and professionalism. I don't like delivering a bad service. If somebody says that's not quite right, I do everything I can to put that right. And you're going to get, there are times where people are doing that just to play a little bit.
Of course, and I know you're a man of integrity, because of our relationship.
Yeah.
And that comes through in everything you do, but the thing is, when people don't mirror back integrity, they get suspicious, they blame you, even though you're bending over backwards. People will look for a scapegoat when they're not facing their own truth in a mirror. you know.
Yeah, I agree.
So so certainly your background in the army and in the police, my goodness, if nobody knows how to go about setting up a security business, then you're definitely a person who does, because you've got all the experience, you've got all the skills, the know-how. So moving forward in your business, where would you like that to go?
I sort of reached a point where I've started doing a bit of mentoring. So I did some stuff with an organisation called Career Ready. So you take a 17-year-old lad through it on a journey over a period of a year and just give them a bit of feedback about their own personal development, their career development. And I actually found that quite rewarding. I mean, my kids are grown up now, and I've got grandkids, and I still give them, you sort of try and help them along. But this was sort of more business related. So that was a good experience. So mentoring, and I do a lot of training now, and I've done that for years, but also on a one-to-one basis, helping people and coaching them. And I don't mean life coaching. This is more sort of skills, sort of security skills related, and just giving people guidance and I suppose sharing my experiences, because I mentioned early on that I was very, very fortunate to have some great teachers and mentors on the way, and being able to give that back. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And definitely. And just before we leave, Colin, and thank you for sharing some of that. And I know we'll be back having more in-depth conversations.
No, thank you.
This is just the touching to show those touch points, to show the range of your expertise and what it takes to continue that. But a little bird tells me that you're dipping into another area of authorship. Tell us why you decided to do that.
Well, I decided, I think just as the pandemic was kicked in, I thought it'd be a really good idea to leave a manuscript for my grandchildren. And that's what it was all about, really. It was just, I wanted them to know my life. And then I thought there's some value in this, in actually sharing it. So you and I met by accident through a contact, through Mike Roberts. We had a conversation. And that's been a great experience for me, because, I was going to, when we sort of discussed publication, I thought, well, I don't really want to use my name. Have I got anything to offer there? I'll just put it out on a pseudonym. But we've discussed on many occasions that maybe that's not the best way to do it. And, to be courageous and say, look, I messed up in some aspects of my life, but in actual fact, overwhelmingly positive. If it helps somebody, great. If it's a good read, I hope it is. I've enjoyed the experience.
It's brilliant. It's a roller coaster, that's for sure. Because we haven't gone into any detail, because we're going to get you back in the author's voice to talk about your authorship at another time. But certainly for me, your courage is phenomenal, and you show that from the young lads once you read your life story from the beginning. And then the courage that it took to leave and go into the army, the courage that it took to take the next step, and the progress within that, and then the courage that you took to start your own business. So that takes courage, that shows strength. But the thing that definitely sticks out for me about you is the integrity. So the book is called?
It's called Imparting the Wolf.
Sorry, on you go.
No, and I think it's a reflection. It's more like an emotional enlightenment sort of journey from, I was brought up at a time when children were seen and not heard. Boys don't cry. You expected to hide all that and get on with it. Just knuckle down and get on with it. That was all the message.
Yeah, and I think that's for sure in the army and in the police, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You couldn't do the job if you weren't able to put that mask on. But the trouble is, that mask can stay on if you're not very careful.
Yeah, and I think what I have to say to you is thank you for saying yes, and for us.
No, thank you.
Doing this journey together. And I think what you've got to share with the world, you're just at the start, because you're telling the story of who Colin Tansley is. But we're going to be really excited about where Colin Tansley is going, but we're going to leave it at that So, Colin, if you get any last words of encouragement or anything you'd like to say about being the expert or about keeping safe online?
Well, where do I start with that one? Let's go back to ABC.
Okay.
Assume nothing, believe nobody, check everything. If you get an email, then make sure you review it properly and make sure you don't click on stuff you don't understand. If you don't understand, ask somebody. Take 30 seconds, just check it over, because from a business perspective, that could ruin you.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I want to thank you for guiding me through all this as well. And, if anybody out there who's sort of thinking about writing a book, then speak to Brenda. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
It's not meant to be about me, it's about you today.
No,
So thank you very much, Colin. I can't wait to have more conversations. And I think I'll get you back with the experts' voice, because we've just touched on the journey today. But I think we need to have a whole conversation around cybersecurity and how people get safe. Because I was with GoDaddy and that's been a nightmare recently.
Nightmare.
So.
Yeah.
So,
and they'll keep coming.
Yeah, I think we need to speak more about this. So we will do. So just one last thing. When's the book out?
It's going to be the 22nd of February 22. So all the twos adds up to 10.
Yeah, 2 little ducks and 10. And if you're into numerology, we'll come back and we'll discuss numerology. And there's so many facets to this, man.
Yeah.
So So Colin, thank you very much for
thank you, Brenda,
and sharing your story today, and also all the things that you've learned about being the expert's voice. So until next time, this is Brenda Dempsey saying, be brilliant, much love, and to the pip.
bye.